We are going to hope that we will get your thoughts and prayers for our chairman, Dave Andreessen. He had a pretty serious accident 2 weeks ago and has been in ICU and is in very critical condition right now. So please keep him in your thoughts. He's served here for 8 years on this board. He's the only reason that I'm on this board. And you know, he certainly has given an awful lot of himself to this town. James?
Yeah, thoughts with Maggie and Dave. Dave is an incredible asset to the town, and just wish him the absolute best. So with the turning of the year, it's 2021, and what we do is we re-elect the chair and vice chair. I think the board is ready to elect a chair. So if you guys want to volunteer somebody, you can make a motion to.
I make a motion to make Nicole Fecto the chair.
I'll second that motion.
Thanks, guys. All in favor? Can I vote for myself? Thank you. Yeah.
And if you want to, you can hold off on the vice chair if you want to do that.
No, I can do it.
All right, go.
I would like to make a motion for Mike LaRue for vice chair for the 2021 year.
Second that motion.
Thank you, Jerry. All in favor?
Cool.
And so it is.
Congrats.
Thank you. It's an honor to serve on this board. And I'm not going to do as good of a job as Dave did. He runs a damn good meeting. Okay, so that brings us to our first public comment session. The public comment session is open to residents of Berwick. Please come to the podium if you have a public comment and state your name and address. We do have a few members of the public with us tonight, so.
Hello, congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
Happy New Year. I'm Jody Rogers. I own 420 Portland Street. It currently is a medical marijuana cultivation facility on that premise. It's in an airline hangar that's been there since the early 90s. And I'm here tonight because I had submitted a packet for conditional use to expand. I don't know if you folks are familiar with the building, but in addition to the 100 by 100 hangar, there is a 40 by 40 building in the front of it that's connected. And it was always our intention to use that for retail. And we submitted all of our conditional use package to James back in, I think it was June or so. And we were looking to add the retail and some production and expand into adult use. And when we submitted the whole package and we had engineering and all of that, reset the wetlands, barriers and stuff, James discovered that we're actually in the limited residential shoreland protection area.
Oh, what a
So that was shocking. My tax card says RCI. I knew there was wetlands, of course, but I was very surprised to find out that it was much more limited than that. So at this point in time, there's nothing I can do with that property except expand into some limited residential use, which I don't think is necessarily appropriate or ideal. So what I wanted to do was just to give you one of the current wetlands, well, it's zoning and wetlands maps. There's two there.
Thank you. Thanks.
So there are two RCI areas in town.
Oh, if you just want to wait until you get to the microphone, just in case. We do tend to have quite an audience
Okay.
at home.
So if you look at the shoreland, the wetlands map, you'll see I've highlighted there's two areas that are shoreland limited residential areas at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
The upper one is around the sewer district area, and the lower one, the longer finger there, incorporates basically my whole lot. So if you look at the other map there, you'll see the zoning is RCI all along there, that's Route 4 corridor, as well as where the sewer district is in the other shoreland limited residential. So basically what I would like the town to consider is it's twofold. Number one, I think that this area is more appropriate to be in the shoreland commercial industrial rather than limited residential. I don't think the back part of my lot is necessarily appropriate for a residential, plus it would mean roads in by the town and things of that nature. And I'm not sure even from a environmental standpoint that it would be more beneficial, certainly not from a tax standpoint for the town. So I'll actually give you this as well. Just kind of summarizes my thoughts.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. So, and maybe you folks have a better way of approaching this, but I didn't know if it was possible to take just the Route 4 corridor and change it to shoreland commercial industrial, or whether you felt it was best to be all-inclusive of the two areas that are in question for shoreland. And the second part of that is if you look at the land use chart for the town, the land uses that are in the commercial industrial shoreland pretty much mimic the residential. And I think that's another potential misalignment. It seems to me that, I mean, these two fingers that you see that are along Route 4 here that kind of swing up, those flank the dog park in Berwick right now on both sides. And I mean, it just doesn't make a lot of sense for this to be either limited residential or under the same use guidelines as the residential areas. So, of course, it's in my best interest to expand that a little bit, whether you would consider doing it for marijuana use or for all uses that are in RCI. But as I said, this whole strip here, I think, is pretty much what belongs there is RCI uses and not residential uses. So it's kind of twofold. It's a little complicated. James may have a better idea of an approach, but I do know that I've read through the ordinance, and it certainly seems like all of the shoreland criteria for expanding or developing or whatever the case may be are very protective. And I don't think there's going to be any safety or reckless use allowed on that property, no matter which way it goes. So from an environmental standpoint, I don't think it makes a lot of difference. It's more from a zoning and use standpoint.
And when you came, because you came before, and didn't we had an issue with distancing?
Yes.
With yours?
Yes.
And do you still have that issue?
No, we're good on that.
Okay, we're good on distancing.
Yep, yeah. And everything that we had proposed in our conditional use application was set off even further from the wetlands. If you're not familiar with the area, the actual Lover's Brook there is at least 30 feet lower than our property is extremely dry, but everything we do there, we can certainly comply with the guidelines that you have for shoreland. And I'm not sure if the state has to approve any change of use or whatnot in a shoreland. That may be a hurdle of this. I don't know whether that gets done before it goes to town vote.
Yeah, they very well may. That's definitely a James question when we get into rezoning things.
So it just seems like it got.
Did you? There you go.
Well, oh, you've been involved with that already?
Well, it's kind of what we had down at 11 Pond. You have to go through.
Oh, Jerry, would you put your microphone on just so we make sure we hear you?
No.
Yeah, I think if we did some, I mean, I like where you're going with the SCI part. It would have to be some, and I'll tell you why. I mean, I think one of the things I rest on is there's a lot supporting commercial development along the rural commercial industrial zone. Say there's a way forward, and I'll certainly, if we think it's a good idea to look at how to do it. I mean, I think because you're talking about, I'm not sure if with the shoreline stuff, if that's mandated. But it's an attorney question. I'll look into it. But what Jerry's talking about is, say this does go through, where you see a way through, you would be subject to pretty extensive DEP.
EP.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
review.
would expect that, yes.
Right.
At the very least, a permit by rule.
I'm not
And
sure
then
what
we
that is. but-
I mean, the DEP talked about extraction. We want high detail in the extraction. I mean, I've thought about if it can revert to the base layer for the use, that's one way through, but those are just considerations. There's also another question on if your application still is standing.
Right,
Are you past the cap? And then we have to look at it addressing your cap, which
Right.
I'm not going to say that we're going to meet with our select board
yeah,
to do a workshop to talk about the cap and where we're at with all of that.
well,
Yeah,
I
it's our
know,
agreement with the selectmen is that we would meet with them period or yearly, right, to review that. And we've got a couple of zoning changes that have been requested, so we definitely have to talk to selectmen about that as well.
well, I know when I came before you before, the guidance that I received was that if I got my application in
Right.
prior to the cutoff, that it
Right.
would be considered
Yeah, yeah.
in time,
I-
and that I haven't really gotten a ruling from the town. Or, I
Right,
mean,
right.
so I think I'm still
Understandable, yeah.
in under the cutoff, but yeah,
I would lean towards yes. I'll check with our attorney
Yeah.
because
sure,
your application's kind of in the pending review.
right.
It's been in a holding pattern, but I think you did a lot of due diligence looking into this.
And it makes sense. I mean, it makes sense not to have limited residential out there. I mean, that's what we're talking about with when our next public comment comes up, Mr. Amatucci. I mean, that's, everybody's leaning the same way.
Okay, so I'll.
Great, yeah, so we'll review this with the selectmen and with James and have the attorney look at it. But
Awesome.
thank you very much.
Awesome,
Jody.
thanks for your time, guys.
Yes. Anybody else for public comment?
I think I can handle.
Okay, you got this? All
James
right,
has it.
perfect. So should I move on to approval of minutes then?
Yes.
You can tell I'm not Dave Andreessen. Moving on to approval of minutes. Has everybody had a chance to look at them? I know James got them out super late today
Sorry about
before the meeting. I've had a chance to review them, but did
Yeah,
you guys?
I've reviewed them.
Okay, great. Any questions or changes?
I don't think so.
Nope. So I just need a motion to approve.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes for January 7, 2021.
And before we do anything else, I want to recognize Jerry as a voting member. I did not do that, so
Okay, I'll second the motion.
awesome. All in favor? Great, approved as written. Good job, James. So infrequent that happens.
That was a little.
It was a little dig. All right, moving on to new business. So tonight we're going to talk about land use ordinance amendments for the June 2021 vote. Since every one of our land use ordinance amendments got voted down for this month's vote, apparently there's some big problems in the town with it. So we are going to redo these and invite everybody to come to the public hearing to discuss if anybody has any questions, concerns, or comments about them. But James, I'll let you go ahead with
Sure.
this.
Yeah, so on that note, I think there's only a couple of things that show back up from the last vote.
Okay.
Great Falls, they who is subject to the Village Overlay District, they're willing to change their site plan to fit in. So these changes, a lot of these are simply cosmetic. We're really trying to make our ordinance more accessible to the general public. And that's getting rid of just language that's confusing, but also Jen and I sometimes frontage comes up a lot.
Yeah.
And access to lots, it comes up a few times a month. So number one, you can see what I did, I put in the revisions with the edits, which shows like if it's bold.
Interrupt real quick.
Yeah, sure.
It's come up twice today.
Yeah, and I think this will help us. So anything in highlight, bold and in red, that's added language. Anything with a cross through it is being deleted. And what's being deleted is, so within a definition is another definition, and that's a no-no. So instead of the definition within a definition, that's struck out, and then it's just referencing section or article 7.21. So you go from all of this to this, which is a pretty succinct. And it's not, the only thing is it's changing is that it's just clarifying an inconsistency.
Okay.
Because what that says is it defines legal access to the lot as a way approved by the town, something that's shown on a subdivision plan, or something that's deemed adequate by planning board. But on 7.21, and the way that the town has been operating for as long as I'm aware of, is the access to lot and dwelling unit standards. So being able to bring in a deeded right-of-way to get frontage off a deeded right-of-way.
Right. Right. I mean, we've always done that. That's what it means.
That's what it-
And that's where people get confused is with the deeded right of way,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah. So in this table puts I think it summarizes it in a small table what's put into words. It also clarifies in our ordinance it says drainage ditches and culverts shall be installed at all appropriate points. The addition of the language, I actually have to highlight and bold that because it is additional language, is
Okay.
that as determined by the town of Berwick or a third-party engineer hired by the town at the applicant's expense. And access to lots refers to any streets, roads, or right-of-ways utilized to access this lot. One thing to clean up is people will put in a right-of-way that becomes a street, and then that's dirt, and then putting off a right-of-way off that right-of-way.
Right. So that
And
is
thinking
yeah.
that starts the three all over again. It's
Yeah,
like,
you can't do that.
that's,
Right.
no, you're
So
using,
is there a way to clarify that within the ordinance?
that's what this.
Okay, so that is
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, which, that's the way we interpreted it,
Yes.
because if you're using a dirt right-of-way, you're using the dirt right-of-way, and the reason why we have that, A, it's a good way to control growth in our rural areas, but really it's about a safety issue with road maintenance and a road becoming degraded and it becomes a safety issue for access.
Right, and that's why we wouldn't want a right of way off of a right of way because
Yeah,
the
you
fire
could
trucks
just
and
circumvent it for forever.
exactly.
And then all of this stuff that's being deleted here is all in reference to a town discontinued road, lot being created prior to 1987 on a town discontinued road, allowing them, you're allowed to build on that road, but you can get an additional lot if you deed it to a child. And it has all these stipulations that are just redundant from the standards that are already specified in 7.21.
Okay.
So there's a whole page of stuff that's just,
I looked through that today. I was like, what?
and it's just confused. It's confused me before. Where
So, do we have discontinued roads with lots like this on them? On what roads are we talking about?
pigtail.
Okay. Is this basically about Pigtail?
No, it's just
Okay, but
it's
are there any others?
town discontinued roads.
Yeah.
I think
Lovers
Lovebrook.
Brook or whatever it is? Loves Brook?
Discontinued roads. Can you think of any, Jen?
King Lane
No, King Lane is not a
that was never a road really, right? Jen, do you have any?
town discontinued roads. I mean,
Is Blackmore Road the same?
no, I think Blackmore was always private, but
It is.
um,
Not off the top of my head.
Coffin
right now,
Lane may be one.
Okay.
That one's a complex one. It was Randall Road at one point,
Okay.
and then when they took the bridge down, it became Coffin Lane.
Oh. Yeah, that's all I wanted so I could look at this like harder.
Yeah, but it does. So crossing that out doesn't affect that part.
Right.
It only affects, and this doesn't even affect it because I added that. Like it's still effectively, you can still have a second dwelling unit if you give it to a kid.
Right.
It just doesn't doesn't reiterate these points that are already done.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, is having the second unit, like, are they still have to follow our road standards that we have?
Yeah, they have to, you can get, so you can do one, and then you get an additional one, but you have to build it to a 2 dwelling unit standard.
Okay, so whatever the 15 foot, yeah, with 15.
Yeah,
okay.
15 feet wide, 15
Okay.
inches of bank run.
And just because it's a discontinued road doesn't mean it's a gravel driveway. It's it's a discontinued road that is now a private road, privately owned, privately maintained. It's not an unmaintained road.
Right.
Okay.
Well, it's not maintained by the,
It's not maintained by the town, but it's
Maintained by
maintained by somebody,
citizens.
by some association of
Yep.
some sort. What's the road off of School Street there where the house fire was a couple of years ago? It's like the worst road in Berwick. Jen must know.
Jewel Lane.
Jewel Lane. That's just a private road? That was never a town maintained
private,
road.
yeah. There's such few instances, and pretty soon, every lot that could have been built on will be built
Will
upon.
be built,
so
and
this
then-
provision will be
Okay.
irrelevant pretty soon. But it came into play this past year and a half.
Okay. Marijuana.
So marijuana, it's putting in the RCI with frontage on 9 and 4. It's clarifying that establishments under the same ownership are non-contiguous lots.
Yeah.
So they can't leapfrog,
Okay.
so they apply. So like if they're across the street from Route 4,
Yeah.
you can't have 2 of the same ownerships.
Okay.
And then exempting, we made that, is that a word, Jerry? Do we have accepting, right? Accepting was the word. Exempting marijuana testing facilities
Right.
from the 1,000-foot requirement, and also exempting it from the testing limit. It's a pretty low-intensive use, and it would fit out there. Number 4, just striking person. Person's already defined early on. I'm trying to get our land use ordinance thinner.
Why would you want to do that? So person is defined in here?
Yeah, person's defined at the beginning.
Okay,
somewhere.
on page 19, under definitions. So where are we striking it?
Within the definitions part, but it's defined. It's defined in another spot at the beginning.
Where? Like if it's not under person,
It's
under individual?
no, it's not in the definition section.
Okay.
Let me get that.
I mean, I guess we don't,
Person. Page 22.
all right, so we have 2 definitions.
Yeah, it's just
I'm not, I have it on page 19 in mine, but I think I might just have an older version, or, I copy and paste things in here, so we're striking it from that.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And then clarifying under agriculture,
Any well, I like that.
and then the woodscape buffer
Right.
shall be enclosed by a screen at least 6 feet in height.
Yeah.
And that's stuff that should be taken care of in through subdivision review anyways.
Right.
Number 7, so within the village overlay district, we specified a specific type of street light. I just think that's a little overboard at this point.
Okay.
I just think that you just provide the provision that it either needs to complement the lighting out here
Yeah.
at Town Hall or next to the bridge.
It was Paul that really pushed for it because he wanted it to, you come over the bridge because they spent so much time and money, on Somersworth and the bridge that he wanted it to all look alike. So how are we making sure that it complements that so that Paul Bovair doesn't call me tomorrow? I mean,
Yeah, no,
compliments. Maybe we could give a couple of examples since since we had an example in our ordinance already.
we could put it, we could say it's I don't know if we want to put it if it's a suggested fixture,
Okay.
because maybe we do leave it in there, make it, like if they,
I don't see a problem with it. Just because we worked so hard on that downtown ordinance, unless these lights that are like so expensive and it's an actual developer that's saying,
No.
no, we don't want to do this.
I found the Walmart, like
Uh-huh.
dollar value version of
Right.
the lights across the bridge that look
The same.
very similar,
Yeah.
that are affordable.
Okay.
And those are the lights that we're gonna use too, so. Maybe I'll talk with Great Falls Construction a little bit about
Okay.
what they're thinking. And then maybe I'll take it out for now, because we can always put it back in
Yeah.
November or
Yeah.
something.
I just wouldn't. Yeah. I mean,
Or take it out in November, I mean.
or yeah. Right. Take it out. Yeah.
That's fine. I was going back and forth on that one.
Okay. Strike it.
Okay. Strike the striking. It's a double negative. All right. 8 is just from.
Sawmill from
Yeah.
the rights. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just.
Yep.
It's an arbitrary number. 50 is still an arbitrary number, but it's
Okay.
still.
So number 9
Yeah.
is the maximum building footprint, which was something that we talked about and and
Yeah. So with the max footprint, what was in the last one was
Yeah.
just striking it all together, not
Right.
having a max
Oh,
building
okay.
footprint.
Okay.
I mean, I think putting a max building footprint
Yeah.
there, or we could just leave it the way it is. I think the pro of just allowing them to do 25,000 square feet, they're not going to have to, for their larger buildings,
Right.
they're not going to have to have 2 separate buildings.
Right.
All it's going to do is going to add costs to their development.
Oh yeah.
It's not going to drastically change the density or the square footage. It's just going to. But we did put it in for a reason.
We put it in so that we wouldn't have giant, massive buildings downtown because nobody wants giant, massive buildings downtown. So, and I think that when we did that, the purpose was so that we didn't have big
Let me-
buildings. So what if we did something with like or what if we proposed a breakup of a facade? Like the facade, like you can have a 25,000 square foot building, but it has to look like, I don't know, 5,000 square foot buildings, whatever. But because we want it to look congruent with the New England downtown, that's the purpose.
Could you
Jerry?
put wording in here to say 25,000 square feet or as approved by, they have to submit something
Yeah.
and get it approved if they want to go bigger and show why it makes sense to do that. In other
Right.
words, there has to be a reason.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, and-
the reason can't be just because I want it bigger.
Right, or because it's cheaper.
Because you
yeah.
can't go above 25,000
Right.
unless there's some,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the density is the density. You can, I mean, you can have maximum density over there. So I know it's not going to change the density, and maybe the townspeople don't know it's not going to change the density. But my concern,
It just changed the looks.
Yeah, our concern is for the visual appeal of it.
Yeah.
Right.
And do we have other things? I know I haven't looked at that part of our ordinance in a while, but I know we put other things in there to also make sure that we got that
Yeah.
New England appealing feel. So I don't know. I'm fine with this. I would like to see something about maybe having it look like a broken up facade, though.
Sure. We have things like you can't have a blank wall for more than so many feet.
Okay.
That's one thing.
Yep.
We have design guidelines,
Yeah.
and they have to submit building materials and facades and elevations.
Yep.
And there is a provision in there that the planning board has to find the submission materials consistent with the design guidelines. And the design guidelines have embedded, we submitted pictures of our like favorite
Yeah,
New England.
Yeah.
Freeport. How many
Crosswalks
times
and-
do we talk about Freeport during those months?
So that should help. You know what? I can also reach out to Mike Lasso.
Okay, that would be that would be really good. I would hate to see, we're volunteers here. We've been working on this stuff for a long time. I'd hate to see another 6 months worth of our work be shot down because somebody doesn't like this one little change.
Yeah, and that's-
and there is we do have a purpose for it. So
Yeah, true. And Great Falls has been willing to amend their site plan, and they're moving full steam ahead. So they're not waiting for any amendments. They don't need any amendments.
yeah,
Hey, cruising right along. Food sovereignty. I said it right. Yes.
good job.
So this one, we borrowed it from Lebanon, took out some of the flowery language. And I'll straight cut to the chase. What happens is we adopt this, and the producers and processors of local food intended for direct producer to consumer transaction in the town of Berwick shall be exempt from state licensure and inspection. And the state of Maine shall not enforce those state food laws, rules, regulations with respect to direct producer to consumer transactions. So this does apply to milk. It does not apply to meat or poultry.
Okay.
I think 70 towns and cities in Maine have adopted this, and our attorney is giving it a once-over to make sure that everything in there is in there. This has been proposed to me several times by local farmers and interested members of the public, and I kept telling them I didn't think we needed it until I'm kind of dense sometimes, but I finally understood it. It's about the licensing part.
Right.
But sometimes they're still going to be subject to some zoning depending on the scale of what they're doing. But we're generally we're trying to be very ag friendly and to be more ag friendly going into the future.
And they would still, and this is a state thing, so this is regulated by the
Yeah,
state.
this is actually something that is a state statute that is an opt-in thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's something that was vetted through the Maine legislature.
Okay. Questions? Questions from the board? And would you like to talk about, oh yeah, look at that.
And before I forget, this will be posted online. We'll have a notice public hearing for February 4th, I believe.
Okay.
And from that date, we'll have the third week in February will be the last time to make any final changes. And then it's on to the select board process from there.
So what you're saying is the public has a variety of opportunities to come and talk about this. So they
Yes.
can come during the public hearing for the land use ordinance amendments. They could also go when it goes before the select board because they have their own public hearing, don't they, for what they put forward. So there's many opportunities for the public to come and learn more, to discuss it. They can come, whenever, send us emails. We're happy to discuss. And we're just volunteers here.
Absolutely. And we're going to work with Jody and look through legal. That would be one of the only things I could see that might be added to the list to look through it. But you can see this is how the process is. A lot of our ordinance amendments are citizen initiated, and we put it through the process, and we vet everything and consult with legal and consultants.
It goes through us. We're just like, hey, we think this is a good idea. The selectmen, who are our town elders who are voted into position, and it goes through legal. It's not just stuff that we just come up with to make people happy. It's definitely vetted.
Yep. Yep.
And do you want to talk about this last
Absolutely.
item?
So what I have here is a zoning request, and let's see, can I rotate it? Anyways, you have to crank your neck. So what this is we have an RCI zone off Route 4, but it also goes into residential areas, as we went through with the Pond Road neighborhood, where it probably doesn't make sense to have rural commercial industrial uses off from Route 4. So this was submitted from the Pond Road neighborhood, and I've proposed some changes to this for my full support. So lot 24 over here is the outlook, and I would just propose taking that out, leaving that RCI. And if you come up here, 23 and 22, 21, 23A, 20, 19.3, 19.1, 19.2, 18, and 17, these are all interior residential uses, and also include 16B as well. That it makes total sense to me to rezone that to R3, which is rural residential. And I'll just make a note that leaving 16 and 16A and 16.1 will remain rural, commercial, industrial. And we are going through our comprehensive planning efforts now, and one of the things that we're leaning heavily towards is making our zoning more granular. And by that I mean having more types of zones in different areas that are more specific to the neighborhood, more specific to the area, rather than just having these broad strokes that make up the zones.
Right, because if you drive down Route 4 there, it's all, it's commercial, 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 and that's why a lot of our land use ordinance for RCI, we think about that, but failed to think about the beautiful neighborhood that's right behind there that's still zoned RCI. So that's why, and you're gonna run this through with the attorney because we wanna make sure that we're not spot zoning, which is not legal, and other things. So this has to be vetted, but it's something that we identified recently with a long drawn out process. It was a nice year we've spent together, all of us, right? And yeah, and it makes perfect sense. So I'm glad Mr. Amatucci and Pond and Perry's Way Road residents that was brought to us. Yep,
and that's all I had.
Okay. Anything from you guys? All right. Well, that concludes new business. We are on to our next public comment session. Speak now or forever hold your peace for 2 weeks. Anything? Okay. Closing the public comment session. Informational items. James?
There's plenty of volunteer opportunities. We had 5 people step up to express interest in the planning board. So those positions are full now, but we got Envision Berwick, we got Rec Commission, Historical Society, all kinds of projects, all kinds of ways to get involved.
How often does the Historical Society meet?
They're pretty inactive at this point, but we're
all right.
looking to get
I
it
have
back.
a 16-year-old that he would be great at that.
We do have
loves
some
it.
interest in trying to incubate it back up and get it up and going.
Yeah, that's great. Mr. LaRue, anything from you,
No.
Vice Chairman?
Good to see you.
Graybill?
Yeah. It's
Nothing
nice
from
to
me.
be here.
Okay. So that would lead to our adjournment.
I make a motion that we adjourn.
Second it.
All right.